The evening light filtered through the tall windows of the Astor Gallery in Manhattan, casting long shadows across the polished marble floor. Olivia Bennet moved gracefully among her guests, her emerald dress shimmering as she navigated through New York's elite art patrons. To anyone watching, she was the picture of success, a young woman who had conquered the competitive Manhattan art scene at just 32. "Olivia, darling, this exhibition is absolutely magnificent," exclaimed Eleanor Rutherford, wife of a hedge fund manager and one of Olivia's most reliable clients. "How do you consistently discover such phenomenal talents?" Olivia's practiced smile remained steady as she clinked her champagne glass against Eleanor's. "It's all about connections and instinct, Eleanor. Speaking of which, have you seen the new Martinson piece? I believe it would complement your foyer beautifully." As Eleanor drifted toward the painting, Olivia exhaled slowly, maintaining her composure while scanning the room. The gallery was packed, a good sign for sales, but her mind wasn't on the current exhibition. It was on the thick envelope hidden in her office drawer, the one with the bank's intimidating logo stamped across it. "Ms. Bennet?" Her assistant, Max, appeared at her elbow, his voice low. "Mr. Collins from First Manhattan Bank called again. He says it's urgent." Olivia's smile faltered for just a moment before she regained control. "Tell him I'm entertaining clients, and will call first thing tomorrow." He was quite insistent. He mentioned something about final notice and... "Tomorrow, Max," she cut him off with a firm but quiet voice. "Please make sure the Andersons get a look at the sculpture in the East Room. They've been hovering around it all evening." Once alone, Olivia made her way to a quiet corner, her confident stride masking the turmoil within. The gallery, with its pristine white walls and carefully curated lighting, was her entire world, and it was built on a foundation of sand. The fashionable address, the designer clothes, the connections with the city's elite, all sustained by loans and credit lines that were rapidly collapsing. Her phone vibrated in her clutch. It was a text from her accountant. "Urgent. Need to discuss your financial situation immediately. Cannot postpone further." Olivia slipped the phone back into her purse, the weight of her family's legacy pressed down on her shoulders. Not just their name, but the mountain of debt her father had secretly accumulated before his heart attack 3 years ago. Thomas Bennet had been a respected art dealer who had made risky investments that no one knew about, not even his own daughter, until after he was gone. "You seem distracted tonight, Liv," came a familiar voice. James Parker, her oldest friend, and occasional romantic interest, approached with 2 fresh glasses of champagne. His tailored suit and easy charm made him look every bit the successful architect he was. "Just making mental notes of who's showing interest in what," she lied, accepting the champagne. "Big crowds don't always translate to big sales." James studied her face. "You know, for someone who deals in authenticity, you're not very good at faking it yourself. What's really going on?" Before she could answer, the gallery doors opened, and a buzz swept through the room. Olivia turned to see a tall, striking man enter, Jackson Reynolds, the tech billionaire whose company had revolutionized renewable energy storage. Despite his immense wealth, Reynolds rarely made public appearances, preferring to let his innovations speak for themselves. "Is that who I think it is?" James whispered, clearly impressed. Olivia nodded, her mind suddenly racing. Reynolds was known not just for his fortune, but for his genuine passion for the arts. Unlike many wealthy patrons who bought art as investments, he collected pieces that moved him, regardless of the artist's fame. "I should greet him," she said, straightening her posture. As she approached Reynolds, she noticed he wasn't surrounded by an entourage like most high-profile visitors. He stood alone, intently studying a large abstract canvas, his expression thoughtful. "Mr. Reynolds," Olivia extended her hand. "Welcome to Astor Gallery. I'm Olivia Bennet." He turned, and their eyes met. His were a deep amber that seemed to look beyond her practiced smile. "Ms. Bennet, your gallery's reputation precedes you." His handshake was firm but brief. "This piece speaks volumes about isolation in our connected world. Your curation has a distinct voice." Olivia was taken aback by his immediate insight into the theme she had carefully constructed. "You have an excellent eye, Most people need the artist's statement to grasp that concept. "I prefer to form my own impressions first," he said, turning back to the painting. "Art should communicate directly to the observer before critics and curators intervene with their interpretations." There was something in his directness that both challenged and intrigued her. Most patrons deferred to her expertise or made empty compliments. Reynolds spoke as an equal, someone who didn't need to impress her or be impressed. "And what does this piece say to you?" she asked, genuinely curious about his perspective. For the next 20 minutes, they engaged in a deep conversation about art, authenticity, and the human experience. Olivia found herself forgetting about her financial troubles as she debated aesthetic philosophies with someone who clearly thought deeply about such matters. "Your passion is evident, Ms. Bennett," Reynolds said after a particularly spirited exchange. "It's refreshing in an industry often driven more by investment potential than artistic merit." Olivia felt a pang of guilt at his words. If he knew how desperate her financial situation was, would he still see her as passionate rather than merely calculating? "Would you be interested in seeing some pieces not included in tonight's exhibition?" she offered, seeing an opportunity. "I have several works that align with the themes we've been discussing." Reynolds checked his watch. "Unfortunately, I have another engagement, but I would like to continue our conversation." He produced a business card. "I'm putting together a personal collection for my new headquarters in Boston. Perhaps your gallery could assist." The card felt heavy in Olivia's hand, heavier with possibility than its simple cardstock should allow. A commission for a corporate collection could potentially solve her immediate financial crisis, but something else lingered in her mind. The genuine connection she had felt during their conversation, something rare in her world of superficial networking. "I'd be delighted to help," she said, handing him her own card in return. As Reynolds departed, James reappeared at her side. "That looked intense. Did you sell him anything?" Olivia watched Reynolds' tall figure disappear through the gallery doors. "Not yet, but I might have found something more valuable than a single sale." Later that night, after the last guest had left and Max had gone home, Olivia finally opened the envelope from the bank. The letter inside was unambiguous. Her extensions were exhausted, her collateral insufficient. She had 2 weeks to make good on her outstanding loans or face foreclosure on the gallery and potential bankruptcy. She sank into her office chair, the weight of reality crashing down around her. The glittering evening, the sophisticated guests, the admiration. It was all a carefully constructed illusion that was about to shatter. Her father's debt, combined with her own risky expansion of the gallery, had created a perfect storm. As she stared at Reynolds' business card, an idea began to form. Perhaps her chance meeting with the reclusive billionaire wasn't just good fortune. Perhaps it was destiny. Picking up her phone, Olivia made a decision. She would reach out to Reynolds not just as a gallery owner seeking a client, but as someone offering a unique artistic vision. And if that connection led to financial salvation, all the better. What Olivia couldn't know as she drafted her message was that Jackson Reynolds had his own reasons for visiting her gallery that night. Reasons that would soon intertwine their lives in ways neither could imagine. The Boston skyline glowed with morning light as Jackson Reynolds gazed out from his penthouse office. At 40, he had achieved what most would consider the pinnacle of success. His company, Ecotech Innovations, had revolutionized sustainable energy storage, making him one of the wealthiest men in America. Yet as he stood before the floor-to-ceiling, windows watching the city below come to life, he felt the familiar emptiness that success had never filled. "The board members are ready for you, Mr. Reynolds," his assistant Sarah announced from the doorway. Jackson nodded, straightening his tie. "And the Whitman Foundation proposal?" "All prepared. The presentation is loaded and ready." He picked up his tablet and followed Sarah to the conference room where 8 board members waited. These meetings had become increasingly tense as Jackson pushed the company toward more philanthropic ventures, a direction that often conflicted with their profit-focused vision. "Before we begin," Jackson addressed the room, "I'd like to discuss the art initiative for our new headquarters." Gregory Winters, the CFO, barely contained his eye roll. "Jack, we've allocated millions for renewable energy research in developing countries. Do we really need to spend more on decorating walls? It's not decoration, Greg. Jackson's voice remained calm but firm. Art has the power to inspire innovation and reflect our company's values. The right collection will communicate who we are more effectively than any mission statement. 2 hours later, after securing reluctant approval for both his charitable foundation proposal and the art initiative, Jackson returned to his office. He removed his jacket and loosened his tie, feeling the weight of leadership. Creating change, even with all his resources, was an uphill battle. His phone chimed with a notification. It was an email from Olivia Bennett, the gallery owner he'd met in New York 3 days ago. He had been impressed by her genuine passion for art's transformative potential, a refreshing change from the transactional nature of most of his interactions. "Mr. Reynolds," her message read, "I've been reflecting on our conversation about art that bridges cultural and emotional divides. I believe I have several pieces that would align perfectly with this vision. Would you be available to discuss a potential collaboration for your new headquarters?" Jackson found himself smiling as he read her thoughtful message. Their brief interaction at the gallery had been the most authentic conversation he'd had in months. There was something compelling about Olivia Bennett, a depth beneath her polished exterior that had caught his attention. He replied immediately, suggesting a video call that afternoon. At precisely 3 o'clock, Olivia's face appeared on his screen. She was in her gallery office, natural light streaming in from a skylight above. Jackson noticed the careful curation of her backdrop, shelves of art books, a small but striking sculpture, and what appeared to be an original sketch by a notable contemporary artist. "Miss Bennett," he greeted her. "Mr. Reynolds," she smiled. "Thank you for making time so quickly. Please call me Jackson. Then you must call me Olivia." Their conversation flowed easily as she shared her ideas for his corporate collection. She had clearly done her research on Ecotech's mission and values, proposing artists whose work explored themes of sustainability, innovation, and human connection, the very pillars of his company. "What strikes me," Jackson said, after she presented several compelling options, "is how you've looked beyond the obvious environmental art. These selections speak to the human element of sustainability, the connections between people and their world." Olivia's eyes lit up. "Exactly. Environmental consciousness isn't just about technology. It's about changing how people relate to their world and each other. Art can bridge that gap in understanding." As they spoke, Jackson found himself drawn to her perspective. Unlike many in the art world who approached him solely for his wealth, Olivia seemed genuinely invested in creating something meaningful. "I'd like to move forward with this," he decided, "but I want to see these pieces in person. Could you arrange to bring a selection to Boston next week?" A flash of something, relief, excitement, crossed her face before her professional demeanor returned. "Of course. I can personally curate a presentation at your headquarters. Actually," Jackson found himself saying, "I'd prefer to host you at my home. My private collection is there, and it would give us better context for how these new pieces might fit with existing works." If the invitation surprised her, Olivia didn't show it. "That would be perfect. I always find that art reveals itself differently in personal spaces than in corporate environments." They finalized the details, and as the call ended, Jackson sat back in his chair contemplating their interaction. There was something refreshing about Olivia Bennett, something that had pierced through the isolation that typically surrounded him. Later that evening, as Jackson's driver navigated through Boston streets toward his Beacon Hill home, he found himself thinking again about the gallery owner. His interest in her went beyond professional curiosity, something he hadn't experienced in years. "Will you be needing me tomorrow morning, sir?" his driver asked as they pulled up to the elegant townhouse. "No, Thomas. Take the morning off. I'll call if I need you." Inside his meticulously restored historic home, Jackson moved through rooms filled with carefully selected artwork, pieces that spoke to him on a personal level rather than as investments. Unlike his corporate persona, here among his art collection, Jackson allowed himself to feel the full weight of his solitude. He poured a glass of bourbon and settled into a leather chair facing a striking abstract canvas, one of his favorite pieces. His physician had warned him about drinking with his medication, but these quiet evening rituals were one of his few genuine comforts. Jackson's phone rang. His sister, Catherine. "How was the board meeting?" she asked without preamble. Predictable. "They resist, I persist, we eventually compromise." "And your health? Did you mention the new symptoms to Dr. Mitchell?" Jackson sighed. "I have an appointment next week. It's probably just stress." "You've been saying that for months, Jack. This company can run without you micromanaging every detail. It's not about control, Kathy, it's about legacy." He took another sip of bourbon. "I met someone interesting, by the way." "Professional or personal?" His sister's interest was immediately piqued. "Professional, initially. A gallery owner from New York. She's coming to Boston next week to discuss the art collection for the new building. And there's obviously more to this story." Jackson smiled despite himself. His sister could always read him, even over the phone. "She's different, genuine. We connected over ideas, not just business." "Jack," Catherine's voice softened, "you know I support your work. But when was the last time you allowed yourself a real connection with someone? Since Laura?" "This isn't about Laura," he cut her off, the familiar pain surfacing at the mention of his late wife. "It's a professional relationship with someone who happens to share similar values." After ending the call, Jackson sat in silence, Catherine's words echoing in his mind. 5 years since losing Laura to cancer, and he had buried himself in work, in changing the world through his company and foundation. The thought of opening himself to potential loss again was terrifying. Yet something about Olivia Bennett had reached through his carefully constructed barriers. Their conversations, though brief, had felt meaningful in a way few of his interactions did anymore. Across the city in his corporate apartment, he had a team of professionals working on the new headquarters, a building that would epitomize sustainable architecture. But what would fill that space? What would it say about the soul of his company? About him. Jackson pulled out his tablet and searched for more information about Olivia Bennett and her gallery. Articles highlighted her rapid rise in the competitive New York art scene, her eye for emerging talent, her reputation for integrity in an industry often lacking it. But as he dug deeper, he found hints of financial struggles, whispers about the gallery's precarious position despite its prestigious reputation. Was that why she had been so eager to secure his business? The thought was disappointing but not surprising. Few people approached him without ulterior motives these days. Still, there had been something in their conversations that felt authentic. Jackson decided to reserve judgment until their meeting next week. After all, everyone had their motivations, including himself. He closed his eyes, feeling the familiar tightness in his chest. Another reminder of his own mortality, of time that might be shorter than anyone realized. If Olivia Bennett was simply another person seeking to benefit from his wealth, so be it. But if she was someone who could truly understand his vision, perhaps even help shape it, then their meeting might be destiny rather than mere coincidence. What Jackson couldn't know as he drifted off to sleep in his chair was that Olivia was at that very moment sitting in her New York apartment, surrounded by financial documents, seeing his art commission as her last hope for salvation. There, paths were converging for reasons neither fully understood, a confluence of art, ambition, and the universal human need for connection that would soon alter both their lives irrevocably. Boston's autumn chill greeted Olivia as she stepped out of the taxi in front of Jackson Reynolds' Beacon Hill home. The historic townhouse, with its red brick facade and black shutters, exuded quiet elegance rather than ostentatious wealth. Much like its owner, she thought. Clutching her portfolio case, Olivia took a deep breath. This meeting represented more than just a potential commission. It was her financial lifeline. The past week had brought another threatening letter from the bank and a call from her landlord, warning about the gallery's overdue rent. Her carefully constructed world was crumbling, and Jackson Reynolds might be her only chance to save it. Before she could ring the bell, the door opened to reveal Jackson himself rather than the staff she had expected. "Welcome to Boston," he greeted her with a warm smile that reached his amber eyes. I hope your flight was comfortable. It was perfect, thank you, she replied, stepping into a foyer adorned with a striking metal sculpture that seemed to capture light and transform it. This is beautiful. Cassandra Wilson's work? Jackson's eyebrows raised slightly. You recognize it. Most people miss the signature elements of her style. The interplay of negative space and reflection is unmistakable, Olivia said, genuinely admiring the piece. Her early works especially have this ethereal quality. Please, he gestured down the hallway, let me give you the tour before we discuss business. What followed was unlike any client meeting Olivia had ever experienced. Instead of the typical showcasing of wealth through art, Jackson guided her through rooms where each piece had a story, a personal connection. He spoke about the artists, with knowledge and reverence explaining what each work meant to him rather than its market value. In the library, a space lined with books and warmed by a fireplace, Jackson paused before a small, unassuming landscape. This was the first piece of art I ever purchased, back when I was still working. Out of my garage, the artist was a local woman who believed in sustainable living long before it became fashionable. Her perspective helped shape my company's early vision. Olivia studied the painting, technically unremarkable but filled with genuine feeling. It has soul, she said softly. Sometimes the most important works are the ones that speak directly to us, regardless of their market value. Jackson's gaze lingered on her face for a moment. Exactly. Not something I'd expect a Manhattan gallery owner to say. She felt a flush of shame at his words. If he knew her desperate financial situation, would he still see her as someone who valued art for its intrinsic worth rather than its price tag? They continued to the sunroom at the back of the house, a space filled with light and overlooking a small but meticulously maintained garden. Tea had been arranged on a table alongside a selection of pastries. I thought we might be more comfortable talking here, Jackson said, gesturing for her to sit. As they settled with their tea, Olivia opened her portfolio, presenting the pieces she had carefully selected for his corporate headquarters. I've chosen artists who explore humanity's relationship with innovation and the natural world, themes that align with Ecotech's mission. Jackson listened intently as she described each work and the artist behind it. His questions were thoughtful, focused more on meaning than monetary value. These selections show remarkable insight, he said after she finished her presentation. You've captured exactly what I hope to express throughout the building. Relief washed over Olivia. I'm glad they resonate with you. They do, but I'm curious about something. Jackson set down his teacup. Why did you choose these specific pieces? What drew you to them personally? The question caught her off guard. Most clients never asked about her personal connection to the art she recommended. I believe art should challenge us to see differently, she said carefully. Each of these works asks us to reconsider our relationship with the world around us, to question the boundaries we've created between technology and nature, between progress and preservation. She paused. These aren't just concepts that sell well. They're ideas I believe in. And it was true, she realized with some surprise. Despite her financial motivations, she had selected works that genuinely moved her, that aligned with values she held dear. Jackson nodded slowly. That authenticity comes through clearly. He rose from his chair. There's something else I'd like to show you. He led her to what appeared to be his home office, a spacious room with windows overlooking the street. Unlike the rest of the house, this space contained no art on its walls. This is where I work when I'm not at Ecotech, he explained. I've never found the right piece for this room. Nothing has felt complete. Olivia surveyed the space, her mind already envisioning possibilities. The morning light here is exceptional. Something that transforms with the changing light would work beautifully. My thoughts exactly, Jackson smiled. But finding that perfect piece has proven difficult. There was something vulnerable in his expression that touched Olivia. This powerful man seeking beauty in his private world, a space separate from the corporate empire he had built. Perhaps I could help with that too, she offered. I represent several artists who work specifically with light and transformation. I'd appreciate that. His phone buzzed, and he checked it with a slight frown. "I apologize, but I need to take this call. It's my sister. She rarely calls during the day unless it's important." While Jackson stepped into the hallway, Olivia remained in his office, thinking about the man behind the billionaire persona. There was a depth to him that she hadn't expected, a genuine appreciation for art's power beyond its investment potential. It made her increasingly uncomfortable about her underlying motivations. She noticed a photograph on his desk, Jackson, with a beautiful woman, both laughing on what appeared to be a hiking trail. She was studying it when he returned, his expression slightly strained. "Your wife?" she asked before thinking. A shadow crossed his face. "Laura. She passed away 5 years ago." "I'm so sorry," Olivia said, genuinely regretful for bringing up what was clearly a painful subject. "I shouldn't have—" "It's all right," he assured her. "Laura was an environmental scientist. She's the reason ecotech exists at all. Her research on sustainable energy solutions formed the foundation of our technology." The personal revelation surprised Olivia. The business world knew Jackson Reynolds as a brilliant innovator who had transformed renewable energy storage, but there had been no mention of his wife's contributions in any profiles she had read. "Why isn't that part of the company's story?" she asked. "Her influence seems fundamental." Jackson's expression softened. "Laura never wanted public recognition. She believed the work itself was what mattered, not who got credit." He picked up the photograph. "After she was gone, I respected her wishes, though perhaps I shouldn't have. The world should know how much of ecotech's mission came from her vision." The moment felt intensely private, and Olivia sensed she was seeing a side of Jackson Reynolds few people ever witnessed. It made her even more aware of the deception at the heart of their interaction, her desperate need for his commission to save her gallery. "I should let you get back to your day," she said, gathering her portfolio. "Would you like me to leave these materials for you to review further?" "That won't be necessary," Jackson said, his professional demeanor returning. "I'd like to proceed with your recommendations for the headquarters. Have your team draw up a proposal with timeline and budget." Olivia tried to maintain her composure, despite the surge of relief. This commission could be enough to resolve her immediate financial crisis, a crucial first step toward rebuilding. "There's one more thing," Jackson added as they walked toward the front door. "I'm hosting a fundraiser here next weekend for the Whitman Foundation, our new initiative bringing arts education to underserved communities. I'd like you to attend. Perhaps speak briefly about the power of art to transform lives." The invitation caught her completely by surprise. "I'd be honored," she said truthfully. "Excellent. My assistant will send you the details." At the door, he held out his hand. "It's been a pleasure, Olivia. I look forward to working with you." As they shook hands, Olivia noticed again the intensity in his amber eyes, a searching quality that made her feel he could see through her carefully constructed facade. For a moment, she considered confessing her gallery's precarious situation, laying bare her desperate need for this commission. But fear held her back. "The pleasure was mine, Jackson," she said instead. "Thank you for the opportunity." Outside in the crisp autumn air, Olivia took a deep breath, a mixture of relief and guilt washing over her. She had secured the commission. That might save her gallery, but at what cost to her integrity? The connection she had felt with Jackson had been unexpected and genuine. He wasn't just a wealthy target, but a person with depth, values, and wounds of his own. As her taxi pulled away from Beacon Hill, Olivia's phone chimed with a message from her assistant. "Urgent, bank called again. Meeting tomorrow non-negotiable." The brief elation from securing Jackson's commission faded. One success wouldn't instantly solve years of mounting debt, and now there was a complication she hadn't anticipated. She was beginning to care about Jackson Reynolds as a person, not just a client. Back at her hotel, Olivia called the bank to arrange the meeting, her mind still on Jackson. She had entered his home with clear financial motivations, but had left with something far more complicated, an authentic connection that made her growing deception feel increasingly wrong. What Olivia couldn't know was that Jackson was standing in his office, looking out at the Boston skyline, feeling a similar conflict. For the first time since Laura's passing, he had felt a genuine connection with someone, but his sister's call had brought news from his doctor. news that cast a shadow over any potential future and added urgency to the legacy he hoped to build. The Whitman Foundation fundraiser transformed Jackson's historic Beacon Hill home into an elegant showcase of art and philanthropy. Olivia arrived in a midnight blue gown, her hair swept up to reveal the simple pearl earrings that had been her mother's. Despite her financial troubles, she had rejected Max's suggestion to wear something more ostentatious. Tonight wasn't about impressing clients, it was about honoring the genuine connection she felt to Jackson's vision for arts education. The past week had been a whirlwind. The day after securing Jackson's commission, she had met with her bank, using the signed contract as leverage to negotiate a temporary reprieve on her loans. It wasn't a permanent solution, but it bought her time she desperately needed to develop a sustainable plan for the gallery's future. "Olivia, welcome," Jackson greeted her at the entrance, looking distinguished in a tailored tuxedo. "I'm glad you could make it." "I wouldn't have missed it," she replied truthfully. "The Whitman Foundation's mission resonates deeply with me." His smile reached his eyes. "I was hoping it would. There's someone I'd like you to meet." He guided her through the crowded room to a striking woman with Jackson's amber eyes. "My sister, Catherine Reynolds Whitman. Kathy, this is Olivia Bennett, the gallery owner I mentioned." The famous Olivia, Catherine's handshake was warm, but her gaze evaluating. "My brother has talked about your visionary approach to art. I'm curious to hear how you think we can translate that vision to underserved schools." Olivia felt an unexpected nervousness under Catherine's scrutiny. "In my experience, art education isn't about creating artists, it's about creating thinkers. Children who engage with art develop critical thinking skills that serve them across all disciplines." Catherine nodded approvingly. "Exactly what I've been telling our board. Would you mind if I stole you away for a few minutes? There are some donors I'd love for you to meet." Before Jackson could intervene, Catherine had swept Olivia into the crowd, leaving him watching them with a mixture of amusement and concern. Over the next hour, Olivia found herself deep in conversation with Catherine and several major donors about innovative approaches to arts education. She shared stories from her own experiences, volunteering at community centers in New York, ideas that had nothing to do with selling art and everything to do with her genuine belief in its transformative power. "You're certainly not what I expected," Catherine remarked when they finally had a moment alone. "Most gallery owners I've met are more focused on sales than substance." Olivia felt a pang of guilt. "I run a business, but that's not why I entered the art world." "Why did you then?" Catherine's directness reminded Olivia of Jackson. "Art was my sanctuary growing up," Olivia admitted. "My father was a dealer, and I saw how art could create bridges between different worlds, different perspectives. I wanted to be part of that." Catherine studied her for a moment. "My brother seems quite taken with you, you know." The statement caught Olivia off guard. "We've had some interesting conversations about art and purpose. I respect his vision." "Jack doesn't let many people see beyond the billionaire persona," Catherine said quietly. "He's been isolated since Laura passed. It's good to see him connect with someone again." Before Olivia could respond, Jackson approached them. "I hope my sister hasn't been interrogating you too intensely," he said with a smile that didn't quite hide his concern. "Not at all," Olivia assured him. "We've been having a fascinating discussion about integrating arts education across disciplines. Olivia has some exceptional ideas for the foundation," Catherine confirmed. "You should have her join our board." Jackson raised an eyebrow. "That's actually not a bad idea, if you'd be interested." I'd need to think about it," Olivia stammered, overwhelmed by the unexpected offer. "My gallery keeps me quite busy." "Of course," Jackson nodded. "No pressure, but I would value your perspective." He turned to his sister. "Senator Williams just arrived. Would you mind greeting him? I'd like to show Olivia something." Once Catherine had gone, Jackson led Olivia away from the crowd, through a door she hadn't noticed during her previous visit. They entered a small, intimate gallery space with carefully controlled lighting. "My private collection," he explained, "the pieces that matter most to me." Olivia's breath caught as she took in the room. Unlike the impressive but accessible art displayed throughout the rest of the house, these works were deeply personal, pieces that revealed the soul of the collector rather than his wealth or taste. "Jackson, these are extraordinary," she whispered, moving slowly past each piece. There were works by renowned masters alongside pieces by unknown artists, all united by an emotional resonance that transcended their market value. At the far end of the room hung a striking abstract canvas, swirls of gold and deep blue, that seemed to capture both cosmic vastness and intimate human connection. This one, Jackson said, his voice softer, was Laura's favorite. The artist called it Infinity in a Moment. Olivia stood before the painting, feeling its emotional pull. "It's beautiful, like looking at the universe and your own soul simultaneously." "That's exactly what Laura said." Jackson's voice held a note of surprise. She believed art could help us grasp concepts beyond rational understanding, like how something as vast as protecting our planet could begin with individual choices. There was such vulnerability in his expression that Olivia felt her own carefully constructed walls beginning to crumble. The genuine connection between them had grown stronger with each interaction, making her original financial motivation seem increasingly shallow. "Jackson," she began, feeling a sudden need for honesty, "there's something I should tell you." "Mr. Reynolds," a voice interrupted from the doorway, "Senator Williams is asking for you, and it's almost time for your speech." Jackson nodded to his assistant. "Tell him I'll be right there." He turned back to Olivia. "I'm sorry. What were you going to say?" Olivia hesitated. The moment for confession had passed, the intimate bubble of their private conversation, now punctured by the reminder of the public world waiting just outside. "It can wait," she said, forcing a smile. "Your guests need you." Jackson studied her face for a moment, as if sensing the weight of her unspoken words. "We'll continue this conversation later," he promised, placing a gentle hand on her arm before leading her back to the main party. During Jackson's speech about the Whitman Foundation, Olivia stood at the back of the room, watching him with new understanding. He spoke passionately about art's power to transform lives, to give voice to those often silenced, to build bridges across divides of privilege and opportunity. These weren't just carefully crafted talking points. They were principles he genuinely lived by. "The foundation honors my late wife's belief that education, particularly in the arts, is not a luxury but a necessity," Jackson told the rapt audience. Laura understood that creativity is the soil from which innovation grows. Every child deserves the chance to cultivate that soil. As applause filled the room, Olivia felt the full weight of her deception. Jackson had shared his private world with her, had valued her perspective, had offered her a place in his foundation's work, and she had approached him initially as nothing more than a financial solution to her problems. After the speech, as guests began to depart, Olivia found herself drawn into conversation with various donors and board members, all impressed by her ideas for arts education. She spoke with genuine passion, temporarily forgetting her gallery's troubles as she connected with others who shared her belief in art's transformative potential. It was nearly midnight when the last guests departed, leaving only Catherine, Jackson and Olivia in the now quiet house. "That was remarkably successful," Catherine announced, slipping off her heels. "We exceeded our fundraising goal by 30%. Olivia, your conversations with the Mitchell Foundation representatives were particularly fruitful. They've committed to a matching grant." "I just shared my experiences," Olivia said modestly. "Their foundation's goals align perfectly with your approach." Jackson's phone rang, and he frowned at the display. "I'm sorry, but I need to take this. It's Dr. Mitchell." As he stepped away, Catherine gave Olivia a measuring look. "My brother doesn't let many people into his world. Whatever connection you formed with him, it means something." "I respect him enormously," Olivia said carefully. "It's more than respect," Catherine replied, "and I think you know that." Before Olivia could respond, Jackson returned, his expression tightly controlled, but pale. "Everything all right?" Catherine asked immediately. "Just a scheduling matter," he said, but Olivia could see the lie in his eyes. "Kathy, would you mind if I asked Thomas to drive you home? I'd like to show Olivia the roof garden before she leaves." Catherine's eyes darted between them before she nodded. "Of course. It was lovely meeting you, Olivia. I hope we'll see more of you. Once they were alone, Jackson led Olivia up a narrow staircase to the roof, where a glass conservatory housed a lush garden of native plants, illuminated by subtle lighting that made the space feel almost magical against the backdrop of Boston's night skyline. "This is breathtaking," Olivia said, genuinely awed by the hidden oasis. "It was Laura's project," Jackson explained, his voice soft. "She believed in creating habitat even in urban spaces." He moved to a small seating area. "Would you join me for a moment?" As they sat beneath a trellis of night-blooming jasmine, Olivia could see that something had changed in Jackson. The call had affected him deeply, adding a new urgency to his manner. "Olivia," he began after a moment, "I've felt a connection with you since our first conversation at your gallery. Here's something I haven't experienced in a very long time." Her heart quickened at his words. "I felt it too," she admitted. "I believe in being direct," he continued. "Life is too short for anything else." He took a deep breath. "The call I just received was from my doctor. The test results we've been waiting for came back. My heart condition has progressed more rapidly than expected." The revelation hit Olivia like a physical blow. "Jackson, Please," he held up a hand. "Let me finish while I have the courage. I don't share this to elicit sympathy, but because it's forced me to reconsider what matters most. The projects we've discussed, the corporate collection, your potential involvement with the foundation, these aren't just business opportunities. They're part of a legacy I'm trying to build while I still can." Olivia felt tears threatening. The man before her wasn't just a wealthy client or a potential romantic interest. He was someone facing his own mortality with quiet dignity, still focused on creating positive change. "How serious is it?" she asked, her own troubles momentarily forgotten. "Serious enough that I've had to adjust my timeline," he said with remarkable composure. "The doctors are exploring treatment options, but they're not particularly optimistic about reversing the damage." In that moment, Olivia's original plan to secure his financial support and slip away once her gallery was saved seemed not just dishonest but cruel. "Jackson," she began again, her voice trembling slightly, "there's something I need to tell you too." "I already know about your gallery's financial troubles," he said quietly. Shock rendered her momentarily speechless. "How?" "Due diligence," he explained without judgment. "Before committing to a major art acquisition, I always research the galleries I work with. Your situation wasn't difficult to discover." Shame washed over her. "So you knew from the beginning? That I approached you because I needed the commission?" "I suspected your motivations weren't purely artistic," he acknowledged. "But Olivia, what matters to me isn't why our paths initially crossed, but what's happened since. The passion you've shown tonight for arts education, the insights you've shared about the pieces in my collection, those come from something genuine inside you." His understanding only made her feel worse. "I should have been honest with you from the start." "Perhaps," he agreed, "but we all have our protective facades. Mine is the untouchable billionaire. Yours is the successful gallery owner. What matters is that we've begun to see beyond those facades." He reached out and took her hand. "I don't have time for games or pretense, Olivia. What I feel developing between us is real, and I'd like to explore it further, if you would too." Olivia looked down at their joined hands, then back to his, face vulnerable, open, yet still strong despite the weight he carried. In that moment, she made a decision that had nothing to do with financial salvation, and everything to do with the unexpected connection they had formed. "I would like that very much," she said softly, her voice steady, despite the tears in her eyes. Later that night, as her taxi carried her back to her hotel, Olivia's mind raced with contradictory emotions: concern for Jackson's health, guilt over her initial deception, and a growing certainty that what had begun as a calculated business relationship had transformed into something far more meaningful. She had come to Boston seeking financial rescue, but had found instead a connection that challenged her to be honest, not just with Jackson, but with herself. Spring sunlight streamed through the windows of the newly opened Reynolds Center for Arts Education in downtown Boston. 6 months had passed since the Whitman Foundation fundraiser. 6 months that had transformed Olivia's life in ways she could never have imagined. "The children from Dorchester Elementary will be here in 20 minutes, Max reminded her as they made final preparations for the center's first official class. "The press arrives 15 minutes after that," Olivia nodded, adjusting the position of a student easel. "Everything needs to be perfect. This center means too much to too many people." The journey to this moment had been filled with both joy and challenge. After their honest conversation on the rooftop garden, Olivia and Jackson had begun a relationship built on genuine understanding and shared passion for art's transformative power. She had divided her time between New York and Boston, overseeing both her gallery and the development of the Reynolds Center, while Jackson underwent an experimental treatment protocol for his heart condition. The corporate art collection for Ecotech's headquarters had been completed to widespread acclaim, bringing her gallery the financial stability and recognition she had desperately needed. But money had become secondary to the deeper purpose she'd discovered through her work with the Whitman Foundation and her relationship with Jackson. "There you are," Catherine's voice came from the doorway. "The donor wall has been installed. Jackson wants you to see it before the children arrive." Olivia followed Catherine through the bright corridors of the center. Each space had been designed to inspire creativity, interactive installations, walls that could be painted and repainted, light-filled studios equipped with professional-grade materials accessible to children of all abilities. They found Jackson in the main lobby, standing before a wall of brushed metal where the names of donors had been artistically rendered, alongside quotes about art's importance from children who had participated in the Foundation's pilot programs. At 51, Jackson appeared outwardly unchanged to casual observers, still commanding, still visionary. But Olivia could see the subtle signs of his ongoing health struggle, the careful conservation of energy, the occasional wince when his heart rhythm faltered, the medication discreetly taken throughout the day. "What do you think?" he asked as she approached, his smile still capable of making her heart skip. "It's perfect," she said, taking his hand. "The children's quotes make it so much more meaningful than just listing donors." "That was your idea," he reminded her, "like so many of the best things about this center." Their eyes met in a moment of shared understanding. Despite his medical team's best efforts, Jackson's condition had stabilized but not improved. The experimental treatments had bought time, but the underlying damage to his heart remained irreversible. They lived with this knowledge every day, determined to make each moment count. Mr. Reynolds, the center's education director, approached them. "The bus from Dorchester just arrived early. Should we have the children wait, or—" "Absolutely not," Jackson said immediately. "Let's welcome them now. The press can catch up." As 30 excited elementary school students flooded into the center, Olivia watched Jackson transform. Whatever physical discomfort he felt vanished as he knelt to greet children at their level, answering questions about the interactive sculpture in the lobby, his energy seemingly bottomless when connecting with young minds. "Are you really a billionaire?" one bold third grader asked him. Jackson laughed. "I am, but you know what? That's the least interesting thing about me." "What's the most interesting thing?" the child persisted. Jackson considered the question seriously. "Probably that I believe art can change the world, just like I believe each of you can change the world." The children were soon led to the main studio where their first lesson would begin, a collaborative mural expressing their dreams for their community. As the press arrived to document the center's opening, Olivia stood back, watching the scene, with a full heart. "He's remarkable with them," Catherine said, joining her. "Always has been, even before." "Before Laura passed," Olivia finished softly. Over the months, she had come to understand the profound impact Jackson's first wife had had on his life and work. Rather than feeling threatened by this legacy, Olivia had embraced it, recognizing that Laura's vision and compassion had helped shape the man she had fallen in love with. "Yes," Catherine confirmed, "but he's different with you, you know. More present, more willing to show vulnerability." Before Olivia could respond, Jackson approached them, slightly out of breath but beaming. "The children are setting up now. Olivia, would you do the honors? I've leading the first lesson. It should be you. The request surprised her. Are you sure? This is your foundation, your vision. Our vision, he corrected her. Besides, you're the expert. I'm just the funding source. They both knew it wasn't true. Jackson was far more than a checkbook, but Olivia recognized his genuine desire to see her take the lead. In the months they had been together, he had consistently encouraged her to step into her power, to recognize her own expertise and leadership abilities. The lesson was a joyful chaos of color and creativity. Olivia guided the children through techniques while encouraging their unique expressions, watching as even the most hesitant students gradually lost themselves in the act of creation. The resulting mural, a vibrant collage of hope, community, and possibility, would become the center's first permanent installation. After the press had departed and the children had returned to their school, Olivia found Jackson in his office, sitting quietly with his eyes closed. Fear squeezed her heart until he opened his eyes and smiled at her. "Just resting," he assured her, reaching for her hand. "Today was everything I hoped it would be." "It was perfect," she agreed, perching on the edge of his desk. "But you pushed yourself too hard. Dr. Mitchell said—" "I know what Mitchell said," Jackson interrupted gently, "and I'm following his protocol. But some moments are worth a little extra exertion." He stood, moving to the window that overlooked the garden courtyard where sculptures created by local youth were displayed. "I've been thinking about the future, Olivia." The statement hung in the air between them, weighty with all it implied about his health, about their relationship, about the work they had begun together. "I have a proposition for you," he continued. "One I've been considering for some time." Olivia's breath caught. Over the past months, their relationship had deepened in ways neither had anticipated. They had weathered her gallery's financial restructuring, his health crises, the challenges of building the center. Through it all, their connection had only strengthened. "The foundation needs permanent leadership," Jackson said, turning to face her. "Someone who understands both the art world and education, someone with vision and compassion." "Catherine would be perfect," Olivia suggested, though she suspected where the conversation was heading. "Kathy is brilliant at fundraising and networking, but her passion is policy work." Jackson shook his head. "I want you, Olivia, as the Foundation's executive director." The offer stunned her. "Jackson, my gallery would continue under Max's management, with you as owner, but less involved in day-to-day operations," he finished. "He's more than proven himself capable these past months while you've been dividing your time." It was true. Max had flourished with increased responsibility, and the gallery was now on solid financial footing thanks to the reputation boost from the Ecotech Commission and several high-profile sales that had followed. "This isn't just about the Foundation," Jackson continued, moving closer to her. "It's about us, about building something meaningful together for however much time we have." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small velvet box. "I had planned a more romantic setting for this, but today, seeing you with those children, watching your passion for making art accessible to everyone, I couldn't wait any longer." Olivia's heart pounded as he opened the box to reveal not a traditional diamond ring, but a band of intertwined gold, sculpted to resemble a continuing brushstroke. "Olivia. Bennett, these past months with you have been the most meaningful of my life. You came into my world when I thought my story was reaching its conclusion, and instead you helped me begin a new chapter." His voice was steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "I know my health makes the future uncertain, but I would rather share whatever time I have with you than waste another day. Will you marry me?" Tears filled Olivia's eyes as she looked at the man before her, a man whose wealth had initially drawn her to him, but whose character, compassion, and courage had ultimately won her heart. "Yes," she whispered, then more firmly, "Yes, I will marry you." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Jackson's smile was radiant despite his pallor. "It's designed by Eliza Chen," he explained. "She calls it continuous creation, the idea that art, like love, is never finished, but always evolving." 2 months later, they were married in the courtyard garden of the Reynolds Center. surrounded by sculptures created by the children from the center's programs. The ceremony was intimate: family, close friends, and several of the young artists, who had already found their voices through the foundation's work. Catherine stood as Jackson's witness, while Max represented Olivia. The bride wore not white, but a gown the color of sunrise, custom designed by a young fashion student who had received one of the foundation's first scholarships. In her vows, Olivia spoke of transformation, how seeking financial salvation had led her instead to personal redemption, to a purpose larger than herself, to a love she had never expected to find. "You saw beyond my facade to who I could be," she told Jackson before their assembled guests. "You challenged me to live authentically, to create genuine value rather than just acquire it. Whatever challenges lie ahead, I promise to face them with you, to continue the work we've begun together, to love you completely for all the days we're given." Jackson's vows spoke of legacy, not of wealth or buildings or even the foundation that bore his name, but of impact, connection, and love. "What matters in the end isn't what we accumulate, but what we create," he said, his voice strong despite the visible effort it took him to stand throughout the ceremony. "Together we've created something more valuable than any fortune, a vision for how art can heal, connect, and transform. I promise to cherish every moment with you, to support your dreams as you've supported mine, to build a legacy of love that outlasts both of us." 1 year after their wedding, Olivia stood at the podium in the Reynolds Center's main gallery, addressing an audience gathered for the opening of a special exhibition, First Expressions, a showcase of work by young artists from underserved communities across New England. Jackson sat in the front row, thinner now but still radiant with pride, as he watched his wife speak with passion about the transformative power of creative expression. The experimental treatments had extended his prognosis, giving them precious additional months together, though both recognized the reality they continued to face. "Art has the power to make visible what we cannot otherwise express," Olivia told the assembled guests. "For many of these young artists, this exhibition represents the first time their voices have been truly heard, their perspectives valued." She gestured to the vibrant works surrounding them: paintings, sculptures, digital installations, all created by children and teens who had found in art a way to process their experiences, to imagine new possibilities for themselves and their communities. "This center, this foundation, began with one man's vision," she continued, her eyes meeting Jackson's. "But it has grown into something that belongs to all of us, especially to these young artists who will carry its mission forward." After the formal presentations, as guests mingled and young artists proudly showed their work to family members, many of whom were experiencing an art gallery for the first time, Olivia found Jackson speaking intently with a shy 12-year-old, whose painting of her neighborhood had garnered particular attention. "Ms. Bennett said you're the one who made all this possible," the girl was saying, "that you believe art can change things." "I do believe that," Jackson confirmed. "But do you know what I've learned? The art itself is just the beginning. It's what happens inside us when we create, and what happens between us when we share that creation. That's the real transformation." The girl considered this seriously. "I want to make art that helps people see differently, like you and Ms. Bennett do with this place." "Then you already understand the most important thing," Jackson told her, "and I can't wait to see what you create next." Later that night, in the privacy of their Beacon Hill home, Olivia found Jackson in their bedroom, looking at a sketch she had made of him months earlier. It captured his essence, the intelligence in his eyes, the compassion in his expression, the quiet strength he continued to embody despite his weakening physical state. "You've made me immortal," he joked softly as she joined him. "I've tried to capture your spirit," she corrected him, wrapping her arms around him from behind, though no drawing could really do that justice. He turned in her embrace, studying her face with the intensity that had drawn her to him from their first meeting. "I need to ask something of you," he said seriously, "something important." "Anything," she promised. "When I'm gone," he began. "Jackson, please." "When I'm gone," he repeated firmly, "I need you to remember that the work we've started is just the beginning. The foundation, the center, they're frameworks, not finished creations. Olivia nodded, fighting back tears. They had always been honest with each other about the reality of his condition, but the conversation still broke her heart. "I need you to keep evolving them, to let them grow and change as you do," he continued. "Don't preserve them as monuments to me. Make them living, breathing entities that respond to the world's needs." "I will," she promised. "And one more thing," his voice softened as he brushed a tear from her cheek. "Be happy, Olivia, whatever that means for you in the years ahead. The greatest gift you've given me is helping me live fully in the time we've had. Don't stop living when I do." The words were both blessing and burden, his permission to continue without him, to find joy again, to create a future he wouldn't share. "I love you," she whispered, unable to promise what he asked but understanding why he needed to ask it. "I know," he smiled. "That's how I know you'll be all right. That's how I know everything we've built together will continue." 3 years later, Olivia stood on the roof garden of what was now known simply as the Reynolds, a national network of arts education centers that had grown from the original Boston location to include facilities in 15 cities across the country. The spring night was clear, stars visible despite the city lights below. She had come here, as she often did, to feel close to Jackson, to share with him, even if just in her heart, the developments of the day. "The Chicago Center opens next month," she said softly to the night air, "and the scholarship program has expanded to include college funding. Catherine says you'd be horrified by the budget, but proud of the results." In the 3 years since Jackson's passing, Olivia had honored his wishes, evolving the foundation's work rather than preserving it as a static memorial, finding purpose in continuing their shared vision and gradually rediscovering joy. The gallery in New York continued under Max's capable management, now featuring dedicated space for emerging artists from the Reynolds programs. Olivia's own artwork, a practice she had returned to after years of focusing solely on selling, others' creations, had found its voice in a series exploring transformation, loss, and renewal. The board approved the international expansion today, she continued her one-sided conversation with Jackson. "Starting with collaborations in Mexico City and London, just as you envisioned." From her pocket, she withdrew the small sketchbook she always carried, a habit Jackson had encouraged during their time together. Opening to a fresh page, she began to draw the cityscape before her, adding elements that existed only in her memory and imagination. Jackson beside her on the bench, the garden as it had been the night he proposed, the future centers they had planned together. The gold band on her finger, his final gift to her, caught the moonlight as she sketched. Continuous creation, he had called it, and so it had proven to be. Their love story had been brief in chronological time, but infinite in its impact. On her, on the communities they served, on the hundreds of young artists who were finding their voices through programs they had built together. As she completed the sketch, adding Jackson's signature smile, Olivia felt the familiar mixture of grief and gratitude that had become her constant companion. He had come into her life when she was drowning in debt and desperation, offering not just financial rescue, but the chance to rediscover her authentic purpose. She had approached him seeking a patron and found instead a partner, a purpose, a profound love. What had begun as deception had transformed into the most honest relationship of her life. And though their time together had been cut short, the legacy they had created, both in the Foundation's work and in her transformed heart, would continue. Closing her sketchbook, Olivia looked out over the city lights of Boston, no longer the desperate gallery owner seeking salvation, but a woman of purpose, vision, and resilience. "Thank you," she whispered to the stars, to Jackson's memory, to the twist of fate that had brought them together. "For everything." As she descended from the roof garden to rejoin the board members, waiting to discuss the Foundation's next expansion, Olivia carried with her the greatest lesson Jackson had taught her, that true wealth lay not in what you possessed, but in what you created, not in what you accumulated, but in what you gave, not in how long you lived, but in how fully. Their canvas, painted together in the golden hues of authentic purpose and love, would continue to evolve, a masterpiece without end. Film de Historia. Dear listeners, we hope that Olivia and Jackson's journey from deception to authentic purpose has touched your heart. Their story reminds us that true wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in impact, connection, and love. For more emotionally engaging stories that explore life's complexities, we've prepared a special playlist you can find by clicking to your left. If this tale of transformation resonated with you, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. Every day we bring you unique narratives that delve into the human experience, exploring how unexpected connections can change our lives forever. Don't miss our upcoming content. Each story is crafted to inspire, challenge, and move you. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What legacy would you hope to build if faced with limited time? Your perspective matters to our community of storytellers and listeners. Until next time, remember that even the most beautiful masterpieces begin with a single brushstroke of courage.